Thomson Reuters Regulatory Intelligence has undertaken its 4th annual survey to find out how firms are managing conduct risk and implementing cultural change to meet the global expectations of regulators and customers. Senior compliance and risk practitioners from more than 750 financial services firms across the world took part. The reports enable firms to benchmark their approach with their peers, and last year's report was read by over 6,000 firms, regulators, local government, law firms and consultancies in over 120 countries. Stacey English, Head of Regulatory Intelligence, is here to talk about the findings. So, Stacey, what can you tell us about the progress that the industry has made?
Well, culture and conduct have been a priority for regulators for some time. So a lot of firms have been on this journey for a long time. It's nothing new. But the progress we're seeing is quite mixed. And I think that's largely because conduct is such a difficult concept to implement. It's very qualitative. There is no single set of rules. Mm-hmm. So it's a very mixed picture, which is why the sort of benchmarking we've done here is so crucial, because it gives firms an idea of sort of practices other firms are putting in place, and their expectations and progress that's been made. So we're seeing about half of firms, just over half, saying that they actually have a good conduct risk management process in place. So a robust and embedded process, albeit implemented, just needing a bit more resource. Mm-hmm. So that's quite a good picture. In the biggest firms, so the global systemically important ones who've been doing this for a lot longer, about 68% are saying, well, actually theirs is implemented and robust. So even more positive picture there. The bit where firms are struggling is in the definition of conduct risk. So actually, what does it mean to your firm? And regulators have never defined it. They won't define it. It's very much for firms to determine what it means for themselves, what values they have in place. So only a fifth actually have a working definition of conduct, which is quite a low place to be starting. And but at the other end of the scale, we are seeing the much bigger firms, around 2/3, actually have defined it. So those that have been on the journey for a lot longer have made a lot more progress. So although there is this lack of definition, we are starting to see some international agreement on what the main components are. And they are made up of sort of integrity and ethics, conflicts of interest management, and corporate governance and tone from the top. So there is at least some agreement, even if the actual definition isn't there. Yeah.
So you talked about the large firms and being on the journey for longer and so on, but the FCA's expectation, regulators worldwide, the expectation is that this is an issue for all firms, even to the smallest of firms, do you think?
Absolutely, applies to all firms, whatever size. The personal liability is there for senior managers, whether it's a large firm or a smallest firm. It's just that the much bigger firms have made a lot more progress because they've been focused on it, and the attention has been on them for a lot longer.
Yeah, okay. And what do you see as the biggest challenge the industry faces in managing culture and conduct risk in the year ahead?
It's certainly the pace of regulatory change. So the changing regulatory environment is relentless. We've seen a fourfold increase in the last 4 years of the amount of alerts and regulatory developments taking place. Of course, we've got political uncertainty. What is Brexit going to mean for existing and future regulation? And equally, the Trump presidency, what is that going to mean? What is regulation going to look like? Added to that, it's a major year for sort of regulatory reform in terms of things like MiFID II, the General Data Protection Regulation, all of which come into effect in 2018. And firms are very much focused on trying to implement all of that whilst focusing on conduct too. Yeah. In very practical terms, though, the bit that firms struggle with is the measurement and the monitoring of conduct risk, because, as we said, it's a very qualitative concept. There is no single measure you can measure it with. Mm-hmm. So what you need is a set of indicators, a set of different measures to give you that bigger picture of how are we doing in terms of our conduct, have we changed our culture. Mm-hmm. And the sorts of things firms are using are results of their compliance monitoring work, some of their internal audit work, and they're also looking at things like complaints analysis, what are the complaints about, how are they handling them, and also what are their staff and their customers saying in sort of opinion surveys.
Yeah, okay. And are there any particular key takeaways for this coming year?
I think the sort of who's responsible has changed over the time that we've done the survey, so it's kind of shifted between board and compliance. So who's responsible for the conduct risk policy, who's responsible for embedding it. And it's fair to say that currently there is a significant reliance on compliance teams to actually own this policy and implement it. But having said that, what's interesting is the impact on the rest of the business. So we asked some very practical questions about what are the actual practical ramifications of conduct risk. And we've seen that the biggest proportion of firms are actually discussing it when they're looking at their future strategy. So 77% are saying, yes, that's a big factor, conduct, when we're talking about our future strategy. But also a third have declined a profitable business opportunity on the basis of, potential conduct concerns. So regardless of kind of who's implemented it, who's responsible, the actual impact on the business itself is quite significant.
This idea of compliance owning and being responsible for the policy. I mean, that strikes me as a former compliance officer as being a difficult ask, in the sense that does the compliance department really have the force to be able to push through a cultural change process on its own? Well,
absolutely. There is no wrong, right answer. It's not set in stone who should be responsible, I think, but in practical terms, it's currently sitting with a lot of compliance teams that they will actually lead the implementation. But as you say, they cannot be responsible for it. The actual responsibility needs to sit at the very senior management levels.
The tone from the top. Okay, thank you, Stacey, for taking us through this year's Culture and Conduct Risk Report, which is now available to download from the Regulatory Intelligence website, risk.thomsonreuters.com. This is Ashley Cover, Senior Regulatory Intelligence Expert for Thomson Reuters.